In the 15th century, Renaissance artists like Da Vinci and Caravaggio discovered that by applying a succession of lights and shadows to different planes in their images, they were able to add the illusion of dimensional depth. This innovative lighting technique is known as chiaroscuro. In Italian, that means light and dark. 600 years went by since the chiaroscuro technique was created and is still widely used to produce quality images in photography, cinematography, and television. Let's see how chiaroscuro works. This is a normal flat scene lit with a single light source placed at the camera's position. With flat lighting, the object appears like a circle. It has no roundness or depth. The moment that we bring the light around, we start creating modeling, and the plane circle suddenly starts showing its spherical dimension. Of course, everything else is dark, and we are still showing only a single plane in the image. Let's place one single light on the background. But instead of illuminating the entire background, we'll concentrate the light only behind the dark area. Now suddenly we have dimensional depth as the object and the background are separated by light and dark areas. This is the very basic principle of chiaroscuro. Also notice how smaller details that were not visible when the light was directly in front of the object are now becoming more prominent. Let's take it one step further. Let's place more objects in the image. The chiaroscuro technique is clearly showing dimensional depth, as light placement not only is giving us the spherical dimension on each object, but light and dark areas distinctively separate each plane in the image. Now let's use some lighting and other techniques to concentrate the viewer's attention in one portion of the image only. We can accomplish this by lowering the light intensity on everything that is not of primary importance in order to make the main point of interest stand out from the rest. We can also accomplish the same result by using selective focusing, so only what's important will be in sharp focus. If we want something to really stand out, in addition of creating separation with selective light intensity and selective focusing, we can do it by adding color lighting to a specific part of the image. Just look at the comparison of what the chiaroscuro technique can do to our images.
Imagine seeing a Caravaggio painting for the first time in, say, 1605. It's probably impossible for us to get into that frame of mind to a time before TV, film, photography, and TikTok, when the only visual arts depicting the human form were painting and sculpture. In the 16th century, the art world in Italy and beyond had seen the high Renaissance with its paintings devoted to ideal beauty, linear perspective, and balanced compositions yield to mannerism and its exaggerated forms, strange juxtapositions, complex, sometimes overly sophisticated paintings that emphasized the artist's talents and fanciful impulses. Then you walk into a church in Rome and see this. It must have been shocking, maybe even too much to handle for some. It's dramatic, crystal clear, so visceral that you feel exposed, vulnerable, involved. It's Caravaggio's The Calling of St. Matthew. You're seeing the moment that Jesus Christ calls Matthew, the tax collector, to be his disciple. As it says in Matthew 9:9, Jesus saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. In the scripture, it's an immediate reaction, but Caravaggio inserts a moment here, a moment of hesitation. Jesus enters what looks like a tavern, obscured by St. Peter and almost entirely in shadow except for his hand, arm, the side of his face, and the slightest glimmer on the halo over his head. He points out Matthew, who instead of getting up and going like the gospel says, points at himself as if to say, "Who? Me?" To the left of him, two of his fellow moneymen don't even realize a divine presence has arrived, consumed by their worldly matters. To Matthew's right, two young men are startled in opposite directions, one leaning toward Jesus and one leaning away, amplifying Matthew's moment of indecision. The scene makes sense right away. But Caravaggio goes much further than just intelligibility. What really shocks about this painting is, of course, the light, the intensely dramatic play of light and shadow called chiaroscuro, or when it's so pronounced like this, tenebrism. The harsh light coming from the upper right of the canvas, like divine illumination, points out Matthew more forcefully than Jesus does. But it's not unrealistic. The opposite, in fact. It's the kind of light we know. We've seen it before. That color, that angle, it triggers our memories of late afternoon sunlight when we're reminded how dramatic reality really is. And what's more, light from that side angle removes the need to add background space to simulate 3 dimensions. The way it wraps around the characters does that job just as well, so that Caravaggio can put a flat wall or a dark space behind his scene, and his figures pop out like they're on a stage or in a dreamlike void, a kind of hyper-reality. See how he achieves the same effect in this painting, Judith beheading Holofernes, or David with the head of Goliath, or the crucifixion of St. Peter, or my personal favorite, the taking of Christ, which was only rediscovered in 1990, by the way. I mean, it's like you're there, crowded in that group. You can hear the metal of the knight's armor, the scream of St. John fleeing. You can feel Judas's hand on Jesus' arm, his kiss, as he betrays his friend. You're caught up in it. You know, it's worth noting that this is exactly the kind of painting that the Catholic Church wanted during the Counter-Reformation as it pushed back against Protestantism. One of the Council of Trent's decrees was that art should strive to help Christians understand and reconnect with their faith. With so many illiterate people, painting was a crucial way to transmit the stories of Catholic doctrine. And Caravaggio's work is not only easily understandable, it stirs deep emotion in its immediacy. It puts passion into the passion of Jesus. See, Caravaggio's other great innovation was in his casting of real people in these biblical roles. He painted from life, so his Mary Magdalene, for example, was someone you might see walking the streets of Rome in the year 1600. To some, this realism was vulgar, but to others looking for humanity in these stories, Caravaggio's figures were revelatory, heightening the feelings of identification and involvement that the church wanted from art. The irony, of course, is that Caravaggio himself was a deeply sinful person, by all accounts a complete jerk, given to street brawls and petulant outbursts, which often resulted in jail time. In 1606, he killed a man in a duel and was forced to flee Rome. He bounced around Italy after that, getting in trouble everywhere he went, until he finally died, we think, of illness in 1610 at age 38. No doubt his penchant for violent extremes contributed to the haunting renderings of violence in his work, but the romantic stereotype of the mad and frenzied artist who dies before his time is a tired one, and you can't help but wonder what he might have shown us had he just calmed down and lived twice as long. Because what we have got is extraordinary. You can see that he was grappling with his sins and his faith in his work. In The Taking of Christ, for example, he paints himself into the scene, rushing in with the guards, eager to witness the betrayal, the arrest of Jesus. He holds a lantern, signifying the power of the artist to illuminate the stories that mean the most to us, to make them personal, realer than real. Maybe it is possible to know what it was like for people to see a Caravaggio painting for the first time in 1605. His light has traveled 400 years through time undimmed. Against it, we're just as defenseless as they were. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. This episode was brought to you by Squarespace. If you don't know, you can use Squarespace to make really beautiful websites for anything you might need. A personal site, a wedding website, a site for your business or portfolio, and in just a few clicks you can have that website up and running. Their design team has crafted amazing templates that work on computer browsers and on mobile, switching, perfectly between the two. You can integrate your own photos and videos with just a few clicks, and you can even link your social account so that you can auto-post to Twitter and Facebook, all from within Squarespace. Head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch that site, go to squarespace.com/nerdwriter for 10% off your first purchase. Thanks, guys.
Today we're going to be talking about photography. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the power of interpretation. Think about taking a photo as a way to convey meaning or to tell a story and to make someone look really good while doing it. They don't have to be dressed a certain way, look a certain way, and they certainly don't have to be making a serious face. It's whatever you make it, and you can do whatever you want because the power is in your hands. So, where do you start? For portraits, there are a few standard lighting setups that you can follow for your traditional looking shots. But today, we're going to focus on one specific type of lighting setup that was inspired by one artist, Rembrandt van Rijn. Rembrandt was born in the Dutch Republic, or as it's now known as the Netherlands, is one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Dutch artists ever. Some of his most prolific work includes The Night Watch, The Jewish Bride, A Polish Nobleman, which really raises the question, bro, are you okay? And of course, how could we forget his selfies? His many, many selfies. But this brings up the single most important contribution Rembrandt made to the photography community, which is how he painted his subjects. His use of strong contrasting light and shadow-filled portraits stood out amongst the rest of the painters from this era. The identifying factor of a Rembrandt portrait is simple. The nose bridges the gap between light and dark, casting shadow on the far side of the subject's face. This structure of light and tone portrays moody lighting at its finest, but in turn led the way for how to light your subjects for portrait photography. His ability to convey emotion and mood was what made his work stand out from the others. And this is the whole reason I'm even talking about Rembrandt, is because lately I've been asking myself, what inspires me? As creators, we're meant to believe that to be artists in this day and age, you need to be totally original. But that doesn't mean you can't pull inspiration from the clouds. With photos, we're always wanting to make our audience feel a certain way. How they interpret your photo is up to them, but it's our job to make them feel. Rembrandt paintings brought pain, happiness, curiosity, and tragedy, and it's no surprise that at one time he said this: "Life etches itself onto our faces as we grow older, showing our violence, excesses, or kindnesses." So what do we do when we're feeling uninspired or creatively stuck? We think, and we think, and we think. Until I got it. Read books, go to the library, watch YouTube videos, take 1,000 photos, start from scratch, learn something new, but don't stop finding new artists and challenging yourself. How else are you going to get better? Like anything, art is about taking inspiration and making it into something that is your own. Jamie Windsor just put up a pretty good video on drawing inspiration from other people's art and making it your own, whether that's right or how to go about that. You can watch it right here. Another reason you should know about Rembrandt is you might get asked at a shoot to get a few Rembrandt shots or something of that sort. Now you know what they're talking about. But how do you set up your light to achieve the Rembrandt look? The idea is simple. Angle one light, preferably one that is heavily diffused, at a 45-degree angle down at your subject from the side. This will cast a shadow from the bridge of their nose over to the far side of the face. A good indicator is an upside-down triangle of light on the far side of the subject's face. You can do this with one light, but I recommend adding a second light as the fill on the opposite side to illuminate the shadows just a little bit. But the single best part about photography is there are no rules. Don't have any money? That's okay. Get creative. Use a single light source. Use natural light. Get your talent to hold the lights. Make the light whatever you want it to look like, and then try 50 different versions of this. Just know what you want your photos to look like ahead of time. Which brings me to my next question. What type of photo do I want to take? If you're meeting up with someone or they're coming to you, you can put the power in their hands by asking, what kind of photo do you want taken? What are you comfortable with doing? What side do you like? What angles do you like the best? What do you want to see with this photo? One of the best things you can do as a portrait photographer is make your subject feel as comfortable as possible. Because when they're comfortable, you're both operating in the most honest way possible, which in turn leads to the best kind of photos. I hope these tips help you on your next portrait shoot. Comment, subscribe, tell all your friends, hit the notifications button. I'll see you in the next one.
Inside the halls of the oldest public art gallery in England is a tribute to Rembrandt's use of light. London's Dulwich Picture Gallery honors the master of light and shadow with a seminal exhibition as part of the Year of Rembrandt celebrations, focusing on the period when he was at the peak of his career.
Everybody always says Rembrandt, 17th century Dutch painter, master of light. And we wanted to ask, how? How was he a master of light? And we addressed that theme through the rooms of the exhibition by setting a different mood in each room.
The curators have played around with the idea that Rembrandt could have been a filmmaker rather than a painter if he was alive today, because of his fascination with light. To achieve this unique vision, the gallery invited leading cinematographer Peter Szyszewski, known for his work on Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back and the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
The labels for each painting begin with a description as though the artwork was a film script. And so we describe what's happening in the paintings, the etchings and the drawings as though setting up a scene within a film.
The first room is all about the influence of theatre and drama on Rembrandt's work, and his sophisticated control of light to convey motion and emotion. The Denial of St. Peter tells the biblical story with a touch of theatrical light.
Rembrandt tells this story in different phases through a different approach to light. The bright light in the centre, the firelight in the bottom right, and then the shadowy silhouettes of the figures in the top right-hand corner. He takes us on a journey of different moods. He is able in one painting to do what a filmmaker would take 2.5 hours to describe.
Rembrandt didn't write very much about his work, so to learn more about how the artist manipulated light within his studio, curators actually recreated a part of his room, inspired by the drawing The Artist's Studio.
In the window setup, Rembrandt would pull a linen above the window so that light could bounce off that onto a model positioned below. He would shut the shutters on the bottom half of the window, and we have accounts that he would use oiled cloths or blackout blinds that he would position across the glass on the windows to stream light through, manipulating light, encouraging these effects of light to create really evocative and emotional works of art.
Perhaps the real star of the show is one from the gallery's own collection, Girl at a Window. The curator calls it the Mona Lisa of London, and it's easy to see why when you look into her eyes.
And within the painting, Rembrandt uses a trompe-l'oeil technique, which means that the figure seems to lean out of the painting. It has an illusionistic effect, and she has a wealth of blackness behind her, a darkness from which she emerges. And so to draw out this effect, we have hung the painting on a strip of the world's blackest black paint. This is a paint called Black 3.0, developed by the artist Stuart Semple. And the idea with this paint is that it absorbs 99% of all light. So then we have lit the painting very carefully so that the effect is as if the girl at a window hovers in space.
So in the end, it was ordinary people depicted in a unique, sophisticated light that made Rembrandt a visionary in the 17th century. Rembrandt painted us as human beings as we are. Hatice Meryem Gelgör, TRT World, London.
We're standing here in front of Albrecht Dürer's 1500 self-portrait, perhaps one of the earliest, most famous self-portraits in all of the Western tradition. Dürer stands facing us as the viewer. It's clear that he stands in a position of power. In the top left-hand corner, you can see his signature. Dürer is very proud of his signature and makes sure that anyone who's looking at this magnificent piece knows that he is clearly the artist. And there's a new relationship between Dürer as the artist and us as the viewers of the piece of art. Dürer presents himself as a type of Christ to us as the viewer. Here he is facing us directly, eyes penetratingly set on us, his hand raised, indicating that he is speaking to us. He is, as it were, in charge in this scene. At the center of the stairwell of our prayer museum is Albrecht Dürer's 1508 The Praying Hands. This is undoubtedly Albrecht Dürer's most famous work, and yet, ironically, few realize that he was the artist behind the piece. Everyone recognizes this as the universal gesture of prayer, and everyone recognizes this piece as the most famous visual representation of that gesture. Yet almost no one knows that this is a work by Albrecht Dürer. One of the most amazing things about prayer is that it's God who always receives the glory. And God designed prayer that way to operate in our lives. We pray for one another. We pray for ourselves and for our world. We pray for the intervention of God, and He does come. We all know this symbol of the praying hands. Few of us know that it was Albrecht Dürer who created this sketch. We all experience the effects of prayer in our lives as we pray for one another, for ourselves, and for our world. Very few of us understand whose prayer is affecting what in our lives. One of the most amazing things about prayer is that God always receives the glory.
This collection is going to be the most comprehensive collection of hands photographs, I think, that's ever been made, as far as I know. The variation, the depth of people's hands, the gentleness of some of them, the unbelievable strength and ruggedness of others, just captivated me really, and I can't stop photographing them. I want to produce a beautiful art photography book. It all started with my grandmother. I was visiting her one afternoon. She was sitting in her garden. She must have been about 85, I think. And she had very arthritic hands, and they were just sort of curled up on her walking stick. And as I was chatting to her, and I had my camera with me, just because I've always had my camera with me, and I just took a quick snap of them, and she hated her hands because they were so arthritic. But when I then went to the darkroom and developed it, it just said granny to me in a way that I hadn't really thought about hands as being an identity in themselves. Then suddenly hands started cropping up everywhere. I started noticing the Dürer's etching of praying hands. There's a lovely line at the end of an E. Cummings poem called "Even the Rain Has Such Small Hands." And I suddenly started sort of seeing people through their hands. And that made me think, well, wouldn't it be interesting to do portraits of hands? So I started looking into it and researching online and trying to find people whose hands had been so much part of their work that they were a part of them. So whether they were an embalmer or a gravedigger or a conductor who talks with his hands, I've done a jockey who talks to the horse with his hands. Evelyn Glennie, who's a very, very famous percussionist, and she's more or less completely deaf, yet she listens through her hands, so her hands have sort of become her ears. So I think it's very easy for us to sort of take probably one of our most remarkable physical features for granted, and they do so much, and they're so different. You'd think that everyone's got the same muscles and tendons in their hands, but they all move differently, they look different, and they're very much a part of the person. They see and contact the world as much as any other sense does. I try and have an idea as to what I want to do before I arrive at the shoot. There isn't a fixed plan, except that I have to be quick. Sometimes it's 5-10 minutes, but it has to be less than half an hour. That was the sort of criteria I set myself at the beginning. I try and make it fun. Although it's a serious art project for me, it's not a serious art project for them.
Till I saw Tim's project and had a look at it, it hadn't occurred to me how important really they were to the job, or just on a general day-to-day level of, what you do without them. There's very little time when your hands are not in use, actually, as an airline pilot. Looking at the people he's already photographed, I'm slightly in awe that I'm even going to be included, actually, as an airline pilot, because there's some big names, actually, in the rest of the project. But yeah, it looks fantastic, very interesting.
Oh, hands are very important for anybody doing anything, but I think with sportsmen and women, that's the one communication they have in many cases, of brain to racket or club or bat or whatever they're using. You drop it a little. And I looked at my hands, and so I thought, well, they didn't appear to be too weather-worn, considering the amount of golf balls they've hit over the years. And I cleaned my fingernails and washed my hands, so it won't look too bad.
It's about the hands, it's about the story behind the hands, and the people behind the hands as well, not just about me being a photographer, so that's sort of how I feel the collaboration works best.
I'm sure when it comes out in a lovely book, it'll look quite splendid.
Fantastic, can't wait to see the finished product, it'd be great.
Here, it's time for more anatomy quick tips. Today I'm going to be going over hands, the feet of the arms. This one will be a little different than the rest. Hands are incredibly versatile, so I am going to try to give more actual quick tips during this video. It's also a good time to remind everyone that this video series focuses on skills that will help you be able to render believable anatomy from imagination. There are certainly plenty of other resources around the net that go far more in-depth on life drawing and reference anatomy stuff, but I like to share my own personal thoughts and notes when it comes to rendering that stuff without reference. Anyway, let's get into it. I'm going to start by going over the basic structure of things. I don't know if you've ever taken the time to count, but each hand should have roughly 5 fingers. I'll make a simple drawing here of both the front and the back of the hand. I have a tendency to stylize the fingers as being a little bit extra narrow, but I'll try to explain more of that later. Just don't panic too much. Like I said, every drawing in these videos is from imagination, so it's only accurate up to my ability. The first thing I want to reiterate is my opinion on the importance of angular shapes when drawing organic forms. Aside from the more obvious differences, one important detail to note when drawing a specific side of the hand is the overlap of the finger lines with the webbing between them. When looking at the palm of the hand, the webbing will flow straight into the fingers. On the opposite side of the hand, it's nice to let the finger lines run past the silhouette a bit. Hopefully you can see what I mean with this little drawing up here. One other amusing trick for showing the difference between each side of the hands comes from the early days of animation. You may notice that Mickey Mouse and many other classic characters often have gloved hands, and these gloves often have a few lines down the back side. These lines are meant to evoke the idea of tendons and offer a quick visual cue to show which side of the hand you are looking at. Personally, I usually just use the fleshiness of the thumb to show the different sides of the hand in the roughest fashion. It's important to know that the palm side of the hand can be divided up into two main fleshy mounds, the obvious one on the thumb side and a narrower one on the pinky side. Try to avoid ever drawing the palm as just a flat surface, and remember to include those little hills and curves. I do have some more handy structural notes, so let's just clear up some space and draw another basic hand. It's often overlooked when starting out, but one thing you should always know about the hands is that the fingers naturally fan out slightly. You can make them stick straight out of the palm, but that is not a resting state. This can become increasingly relevant if you ever want to draw a hand that is curled up into a fist or gripping anything. Since the tangents of the fingers are naturally structurally fanned outward, this means that curling them up will result in them pointing slightly inward toward the center line of the hand. So, if you ever need to curl up a pinky or index finger, just remember that it will always skew toward the center of the palm. Next up, I want to briefly diagram the differences between the more structural and more fleshy areas of the hand. You may also notice again how the tendons fan outward toward the primary knuckle of each finger. It should also be considered that the primary joint for the thumb is not the one located off into the side of the webbing, but instead located right up against the wrist. Using this mindset will also help improve your understanding of other mammal anatomy and creature design. You can see how it looks a little more animal-like before you add the more human traits. Anyway, for our human hands, I like to remember that even from the back, you should be able to see a little bit of the soft fleshiness peeking out on the pinky side of the hand. It's also good to note the large amount of fleshy webbing between the thumb and the index finger. If you make a tight fist, all of this flesh doesn't simply vanish from existence, but instead forms a bit of a compacted lump on the thumb side of the back of the hand. This all sounds very convoluted and confusing to describe, so hopefully you can just look at the drawings here on the page and understand what I'm talking about. You can see that compacted fleshy lump on the far right there, circled in green with a little fleshy label. Alright, that's it for the structure stuff
Try this. Guys, I'm gonna pull out all the guns now. We're gonna do this. We're gonna make this happen. Absolutely. Okay, group the fingers together. Everybody see that? This is like a mass of fingers here, and then this finger is doing what? The thumb connects this way, and look at this big shape of the palm. Everybody see that? Okay, and this angle of the finger, this coming down like this. Okay. You know, this should be more dramatic, I think. Okay, there we go. This is a huge hand. Why am I drawing this so big? I don't know. I guess I want the space. Okay, so let's organize this a little bit more. There's more of the finger. This, I think, is too high. Let me bump that down a little bit. And then maybe this. Okay, so here's like the tip of the finger. And then the thumb is like hiding back here. There's another joint. Shoot, that is like, ugh, what is happening? All right, let's just search around. I have a feeling this finger is too big. But does everybody see how unsure things are at the beginning? Like, it should be that way. Like, you should never feel so like, oh, I know where that is. Like, that's not gonna happen. So it's okay to have this doubt when you draw. That's what I think. I don't think you should ever feel that secure about what you're doing, because you want to leave your options open. You want to feel when you're drawing that anything is possible. Otherwise, it's like you feel so trapped. Like, it's not a good thing. Okay, I got to move down here. I'm sort of ignoring this. And you know what? I'm going to try to draw a little faster and a little bit more assertively. And you guys tell me what you're going to try to do. Because I think it does not hurt when you're working on something to have like a short-term goal. Like just to say, okay, for this drawing, I'm going to think more about shading. Or in this drawing, I'm going to be a little bit more conscious of the bone structure. Like whatever it is you guys want to do. It doesn't matter. But just to have some type of goal is sometimes a really good thing. Okay, now this is a really dramatic area of tone. And there's like this big swath of like, woo, that is really cool and intense. I love that. Okay, and then does everybody see how this pocket, it like cuts across the hand? Yeah, I know, it's a mess. It looks really bad, you guys. Oh, you know that feeling where you're like, I'm gonna do it. This one's gonna be the good one. And then it's like you totally shoot yourself in the foot by saying that. Like you just never say that. Just don't tell yourself it's gonna be good. That's like basically a guarantee it's not. But you know what? Now it's a big mess. And now I don't care. So let's just try that. Okay, so this finger, and then again, I'm just gonna do the tops of the fingers like this, quickly mask them in, and then, ooh, that is one weird looking hand. Okay, it's very bizarre. Let's try this. This, I really do need to put in the fingernails pretty early because they're so big and prominent here. So let's get that in. And does everybody see, like you can really see in this photo how three-dimensional the fingernails are. Like you really do have to treat them like forms. I think a lot of people don't. They just sort of trace them on and they do not look good when you try to do that. Okay. Like this fingernail is very clear. This one's really coming down. And then there's that like little pocket that comes in. And then some shading over here. Yeah, I'm just gonna, I can't do this. This thumb is totally screwing with me. Anybody else like really being driven nuts by this thumb? Like it's so awkward. Like what is going on there? It's really bizarre. This is not my hand. You guys can't blame this on me, okay? This is somebody else's hand. All right, now we need the rugged tone. Okay, so I need to put in this, like there. Need more flat tones because I'm getting too caught up in some of the little sections, and I really need to show this a little bit better. Okay, I just feel like this is going to get dark. But you know what? Too bad. I want it to get dark. Yeah. I'm going to try to use more, like, I'm going to use a little more pressure, and I'm going to try to be more deliberate and assertive with the marks. Like, I want the marks to feel harsher and sharper. I want them to have bite, like I said earlier. Okay. And, you know, it might get darker than I want it to be. But you know what? I am going to start using my eraser a little bit more because I feel like it's time for me to start doing that. It's too wide. Shoot. Crap. Okay, hang on. It's time to squint, guys. If I squint, it's a stupid thumb. Come on. All right. Ugh. Who else is being driven crazy by this thumb? Please let me know I'm not alone because it's really annoying me right now. I think it's more like, shoot, now this is a really bad mess. This is really, really bad. See, this is why I should not have started so dark. Now I am like totally paying the price for this. Ugh. Yes, I know, told you so. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this part's hard too because there are all these like, you know when the wrinkles in the skin, they sort of like cross over each other? Like they're weird. I noticed especially when I was doing those drawings of the elderly figures that a lot of the skin, it tends to cross more. Like on a younger figure, you don't see wrinkles cross over each other. It almost looks like, I don't know, it's almost like a grid of skin wrinkles. It's really cool. I mean, I think it's really neat looking, but it's hard to draw. Like that's the difficult thing. Looks great, but it's really, really hard to draw. All right, see here, I do want to get the fingernail in a little bit better. And this fingernail is too big. And this this is such a mess. Shoot. Okay, keep that there. So I know we saw ball of meat before, and we saw a dark mass. What are people seeing right now? I'm sort of seeing like the top of a turtle shell. I don't know. It's not a hand. I can tell you that. Definitely not. Okay. Let's get in this fingernail, and also this shadow, I think should be pretty important, and I really want to articulate the bottom of this nail so I can try to draw the stupid thumb. Crap, so annoying. This is so, like that, see, every single time I try to make it thinner, and then I'm like, but then I'm out of space. You know, it could be the stupid finger is too far to the right. Maybe I need to move this over. Oh, it's really confusing. You know what, I better just step away. I'm spending way too much time fussing in that area, and you know what, it is not helping me right now. So step away. That's what you gotta do. Step away and work on some of these skin folds, because these are really fun to draw. And I do want to get the tone over here looking a little bit more dramatic, like this. Okay. I do want to add, it's hard. I don't really want to do that much with the eraser, because this drawing's not really long enough to warrant like real eraser work, but I sort of need it because I was a little too fast to screw with things. You gotta jump around, guys. You see, I was picking here, and now I'm like, oh, crap. I gotta go up here, move around this way, get the pudginess of this area, and pull this over. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I need, shoot, I need the eraser. I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm being weak for using the erasers. That's stupid. Like, everybody uses erasers. But I don't know, I guess for me, like, to me, the eraser is like the sign that I'm like not building well, or I overdid it and I'm not being sensitive enough, or like whatever. It's really stupid. It's just like a little hang up I have. Okay. This is feeling a little bit better. I don't want to screw with myself. You don't want to jump the gun and, you know, tell yourself that your ball of meat is amazing, because it probably isn't. I think a little more shading up here. I'm losing the fingers. The fingers are a total mess right now. Oh my God. Well, I do have 5 minutes. I feel better about that. See? Maybe I actually can fix this before I run out of time, because I do want to make something that makes me think, okay, yes, I am qualified to teach drawing. Like, yes, that degree did matter on some level. All right. Oh, this is what, okay, you know what we got here? I just found something. This is really smart. Well, it's not smart. It's smart that I'm going to actually do something with it. Does everybody see there's this like little pocket of highlight? You guys see that? Okay. It's right behind this finger, because the finger is being backlit. And so that's what you're seeing. Although the lighting is it's way more sophisticated than I have it right now. But at the very least, I'm capturing the backlighting, which I do think is important. And part of me wants to just like shade everything to death, because I love that. Oh, I love it. I mean, as much as I'm always like bothering you guys to not render stuff, I have to admit I really like rendering things. It's just, it feels good. It's like candy. It's like, I know it's not that exciting, but it's like candy. It's so good. Okay. Oh, good. I still have, you guys ever look at the time and you're like, oh, good. Still got time. Like, it feels really nice. It's like, oh my God, I'm not in panic mode. It's great. Okay. You know what? I'm sort of losing this. So let's go back in and just really push down there, because I'm sort of losing this form as well. And then this form too. A little more there. Okay, we really got, okay. I need some tension, guys. Remember tension? Remember we talked about magneto hands going like this? You know, they always look really silly. Like, I know, like I would imagine if you have magnetic powers, like why does doing this like help? Like, shouldn't you just be able to move it with your mind? It's a little bit silly. That's okay. As long as Michael Fassbender makes that like angry but like focused face, I love it. That's all that matters. Do whatever you want with your powers. It doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, you know what else? Also here, I did not put the shadow that's behind this finger, and now it's a little bit easier to see that. It's not great, but it's better for sure. All right, I really want to make this look better. This part down here, like, this is so gorgeous. This whole, like, section of, like, folds and veins and wrinkles and, like, oh my god, it's so awesome. Love this section here. But I don't want to, like, mess it up. Like, I want to do it justice. Ugh, and I gotta put down some, like, hardcore marks. Okay, now let's whip it out, you guys. We got 2 minutes. Put down whatever mark it is you have been waiting to put it down now. Oftentimes I'm like, wait till you get it. Now is the time, guys. Now is the time to throw it down. Whatever it is you've been holding back because you are trying to build your piece and get the form across, whip it out now, okay? You have my permission. Get it out now. We're going to transform our balls of meat into something that looks less like a ball of meat, okay? That is our goal as an art community. Do you guys think we can do that? Can we reach for the stars? Just try to make it not look like a ball of meat. That's exactly what we're after here. Okay, a couple more, like, just little cosmetic strokes to go in there. And actually, I really should work on this fingernail because I sort of abandoned it earlier. And it definitely needs some of this. I feel like I chickened out on these fingers. I feel like stupid fingernails, not easy to draw, not very clear. See, like this, I really feel like I would need to slow down and just do a better job with that. Okay. Let's see, like that. See, I totally messed up the shape though. I feel like I smushed it. Like it's not the shape that I want it to be. I really lost the shape. You know what I did? I jumped the gun. I spent way too much time. Like, this should be lower. Like, I totally screwed that up. Maybe in, like, let me see if I can just try to alter it. Like, I don't know that this is really going to help that much, but I do think I made that a little too squished. So maybe if I try something like that, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. I think that was a Band-Aid fix. I think that did not help things. Oh well. Oh my god, 36 seconds. All right, guys. We have to do this now. Couple more little cosmetic bits of skin. All right, guys. I think that is it for that drawing.